Brothers and sisters, today we encounter 3 miracle stories, feeding stories, 3 accounts of distinct miraculous events. I say 3 because behind Elisha's feeding of the 100 and Jesus' feeding of the 5,000, there is the foundational story of Moses and the feeding of the Hebrews with manna during the 40-year journey to the Promised Land. When we are told in the gospel that Passover is near, whenever we hear Passover, we should think of Moses and the journey in the desert to the Promised Land. When the people grumbled for lack of food, God supplied the manna that satisfied their hunger. In the first reading, we hear Elisha use 20 barley loaves to feed 100 famine-struck people. Then Jesus feeds the 5,000 people and more with the equivalent of a small boy's lunchbox. Perhaps 5 small pita-style loaves and 2 large sardines. And yet all were filled to satisfaction. No one went hungry. As today's psalmist wrote, "The hand of the Lord feeds us. He answers all our needs." Each of these 3 miracles speak to us of the superabundance of God. The God who is love, who wills only the good for us, wills our salvation, friendship, and sharing in his glory. God desires to satisfy our every hunger. Jesus demonstrates a divine love that goes beyond measure. God's superabundant love is manifest in the satisfaction of each of the 5,000 and the 12 baskets left over. This is so important for us to understand. We see every day that material goods are limited. We are told this in so many ways, that scarcity is the lot of human persons. Where there is scarcity, there must be competition. If you don't get yours, someone else will. Every impending hurricane reminds us to get our water, toilet paper, and batteries now. Why? Because they are limited. Get yours before they run out, we are told. The English philosopher Thomas Hobbes once wrote, "Life is a war of each against all." What a vision of humanity. Too often we think that love works that way, that love is quantifiable, that it is limited, that it is subject to competition. We say things like, "You love so-and-so more than me." We use competitive images. If you love God with all your heart, how can you love me? Or the opposite. If I love her or him with all my heart, this must mean that I can't love God with all my heart. Love doesn't work that way unless we choose to limit it. Brothers and sisters, the gospel today reveals to us that God's love is superabundant. It goes beyond what satisfies. There are leftovers. In this we see a spiritual truth. Love is not quantifiable, it's not divisible. There is love, more than enough love to go around. The limitation of love does not come from love, but from our limited human embodiment in space and time and our sinfulness. God, however, through grace, through baptism, through reconciliation, through confirmation, the Eucharist, marriage, holy orders, and the anointing of the sick, gives us the capacity to love beyond measure in so many different ways and moments in our lives. Jesus multiplies the loaves and fishes. God, through his superabundant love, through ways unexplained by sight or science, can take the smallest generosity and accomplish amazing goods. Think of the generosity of this small boy. He gives up his lunch. He doesn't know the why or the how. He leaves his lunch in the hands of Jesus, and suddenly the 5,000 are satisfied and the 12 baskets are collected. This happens by the love of God, the grace of God, God's will for the good of each person, that their hunger, both physical and spiritual, be satisfied to the full. Jesus is calling us today, sisters and brothers, asking us as his disciples to live and do as the little boy did, to give up our lunch, to place at his disposal our gifts, talents, resources, our ordinary lives, in order to feed, in order to offer the fullness of life to the 5,000s in our lives. To be sure, even though our gifts are limited, by superabundant love, divine love, they can be made to reach far beyond what we can imagine or measure. In the second reading, Paul tells us there is one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all. Paul is reminding us that beyond all our division, there is a unity made possible in God's superabundant love. For those of us who have been around St. Theresa for a while, you might be familiar with the name or the initial CCSC, Christian Community Service Center. For our parish and 39 other Christian churches and congregations, CCSC is something more. It is how we help not only to feed, but to clothe, to house and train those who are poor, hurting, and vulnerable. Each day, CCSC multiplies through God's grace its meager offerings to feed 30 to 45 families. 30 to 45 families a day. In 2023, CCSC gave away more than 10,000 5-day food baskets for families facing hunger and food insecurity. But food is just one way that CCSC multiplies the gifts of those who support it. Last year, another 700 families received mental assistance. 4,000 children received back-to-school supplies. Almost 2,500 children received toys and books at Christmas. And almost 200 adults graduated from CCSC's 2 job training programs. More than just another good social service, CCSC is a ministry of 40 churches who share faith in Jesus Christ and who understand the responsibility that we have for caring for and seeing Jesus in the faces of the poor. CCSC is our St. Teresa's ecumenical partner in feeding the 5,000. As member churches, Catholic, Episcopal, Presbyterian, Baptist, Evangelical, and more, we certainly differ in our theology, but we all agree and are committed to make God's superabundant love available to all through these programs. Alone we could not, parish by parish or church by church, accomplish what God is able to do through us working together. There are many ways that we can make sure that our gifts are multiplied to feed the 5,000 of our day. CCSC is indeed one of them. What can we do with 2 small fish and 5 barley loaves? Nothing. What can God do with those same fish and loaves? Feed 5,000. Let us this week, sisters and brothers, consider ways that we can indeed love without limit and act on behalf of those in need in our community, or those on our borders, or for those who hunger throughout the world. The hand of the Lord feeds us. He answers all our needs. The hands that the Lord uses are yours and mine.
Please like, subscribe, and comment below. God bless you.